Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. Today, we've got a very interesting guest in the studio with us, or actually remote because of COVID. We've got Mike Wittenstein with Story Miners. And Mike, not everybody is familiar with Story Miners or you. So would you mind sharing with our audience a little bit about you, your company, and what you're all about and how you got into this crazy world called marketing?
Oh my gosh. How much time? Let's keep it real short. So I started one of the first digital agencies in the world back in the 1990s with my partner, Jackie Goldstein. And by the way, anybody who started a digital agency back then was one of the first in the world, right?
Right.
But we sold that, and then I went to work for IBM as their e-visionary, and that was a lot of fun. That was a dream job in the corporate world because they hired me for my entrepreneurial skills, which internally, and it was amazing how much stuff they had to play with. You could borrow a little bit of this and that, and put it all together, and boom, out comes an author offering and another speech and some travel and all this stuff. But it was fun to see large companies take to new ideas. When IBM's time was over, the dot-com became a dot bust, if you will.
Right.
We started Story Miners with a different colleague, Tom Milkovic. And we realized that no matter how much technology was changing our lives, and we feel like it's changing a lot now, it was the same feeling back around 2000 as well. No matter how much technology changes your life, people still go through the same things. They still have the same needs. They still need to be treated as people. They still have work that they have to do and kids to raise and all of that. And for a brand, it means that nothing should get in the way of a story. Not tech, not desktop publishing, not fancy graphics. You need to be able to communicate who you are. So we talked about names for the company, and we came up with Story Miners. Like, we'll help you find who you are. But it's not just, and here, this is the one thing I really want to share. It's not just what you say, it's what other people say about you. So the story that we unlock is the one that your customers will be dying to tell their friends about. What's the meme? What's gonna go viral? So everything was based on that.
Okay, so that's already got me intrigued. You're taking it from not necessarily my story, but what the customer story is about who and what you are. So, you sent me the topic for today is how a better story can help you serve you better and sell more. Mm-hmm. So as we delve into that, why don't you get us started with some ideas and some thoughts about this?
Well, I guess one of the things that I could say is that a story can't be about you. If you're telling a story to somebody else because you want them to know about you or you're trying to get them to buy something, they have to be the hero in the story. That's probably the most important thing I could say. That's the 2-minute little bit right there. Right. It's all about making your clients a hero. Sure. How do you make somebody else a hero? Well, you have to give them an experience. You have to set them up for discovery, and then you have to set them up for success. So let's take those 3 parts. Okay. If you're giving your clients words, but then you're leaving it to them to do everything. When I go to most of the software vendors that I use, and I say, I need help, they go, oh, we've got a lot of words over here and a whole bunch over there and some over there. Why don't you go read them and take care of this yourself? They kind of go like this to me, even though it's just a chat box. Sure. But they're pushing all that work onto me. That's not an experience that I enjoy. So, one strike against them right there. Okay. If you're setting up an experience, you need to make the client the hero. So what you need to do is start telling your story from their point of view. So in the case of me being a not knowing enough user of some piece of software, they need to be talking to me in terms of my goals and objectives, not their goals and objectives. Yep. They need to use language that reflects the world that I live in, not the world they live in. Right. Now, as an example, Microsoft is an amazing brand, especially in the last 5 years. It is way better than it used to be in terms of treating people well and variety of products, working enterprise, front end, consumer, all that good stuff. But when you crack open that DOS manual for the first time, It doesn't tell you anything. You have to know all that information before you can get started with anything. They treat everyone like an insider, but you have
Sure.
to be an engineer to be an insider. So not
Sure.
so good. So if they're trying to get me to use a piece of software, they might do something like, oh, Mike, we understand what it's like to run your own business and to be in a pinch schedule-wise.
Right.
Everybody learns a little bit differently. Would you like A, B, or C?
Right.
All of a sudden, what a difference that is. So that's the second part. And the third thing is to set them up for success. And that means that when you're telling a story, you're kind of leading a client toward a place where they can be transformed, where they can get more value from you. But you can't just say that you're going to do that. You have to really do that. Like we're in the middle of all this political brouhaha in Georgia right now, and we're getting promises and condemnations and happy thoughts and sad thoughts. So wherever you are, it's a mess. Nobody's really set up for success. And we all know at the end of the day that none of the politicians can actually deliver on what they promise, because that's not how things are set up. They're just kind of saying what they hope will happen and hoping it resonates and hoping it will resonate with legislators, but they can't be accountable for that.
So they're trying to spread hopium.
There you go. Hopium is a good word. So your business, as part of telling your story, and we're wrapping up this little piece right here, as part of telling your story, you have to be able to deliver your clients their success at the end, which means you might be needing to deliver some new services, some new products, responding a little bit differently.
Sure.
So I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. I've heard this term called the curse of knowledge. And I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but basically everybody that's a so-called expert in whatever field it is makes an assumption that the other person on the other side is or somewhat of an expert too. So they really, from going from a 10, they can maybe get it down to about a 6 when they're really down at a 1 or 2, no matter how intelligent they are. And that gap is that curse of knowledge. So, like you said a minute ago, they don't want to hear, your example didn't have any jargon. It didn't have any technical terms in it. It made it relatable to me. Mm-hmm. So I think that's exactly, I agree with you 100% on that.
Cool. So, well, we'll talk about something else and maybe we can disagree and start some sparks flying.
Uh-oh. Okay. Sure. So this advent that you introduced called the hero. Mm-hmm. I think, at least from what I've seen over my years, prospects only care about 2 things. What's in it for me? And how are you going to make me the hero of my story? Really don't care about your story. I don't care you have a mortgage or you got bills to pay. I got those same problems, but how are you going to solve my problem? Before
you ask the rest, I just want to make a quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't necessarily believe that all the way. I think that the order is a little different. When people are out hunting for something because they have a need, especially in business, because they got to get stuff done, they are very focused on their outcome. Right. And often I hear people say that, and they really don't care about you, like you said. Right. I think most people do care about those that they work with, but it just comes second. So when you're communicating with folks, you want to make sure that you serve up a little bit of those, both of those parts. But of course, the part that they need right now needs to take primary position. Keep going.
No, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I mean, I always kind of, I kind of relate this kind of stuff to people I talk to, kind of like the Batman and Robin story. Mm-hmm. Batman and Robin were the dynamic duo, and everybody thought Batman, couldn't be Batman unless Robin was by his side. Well, really, Robin was nothing more than a pretty guy in leotards, all right? What made Batman is really Alfred.
Good point.
And I think what we're really supposed to be doing in business is we need to be the Alfred to a client that we work with.
Yeah.
And we don't need the credit. We just need to make sure that we're getting our superhero that we're working with to be more of a superhero, and we just be the Alfred. Does that make sense?
I love it. You got to be the Yoda, your Obi-Wan
Perfect.
Kenobi, your Dumbledore. You're
Right.
Definitely not the hero. You're in the hero making and hero supporting business if you have clients.
Perfect analogy. I love that. The hero making business. So if we're going to be in the hero making business, what sort of, one of the things about Batman is he had a utility belt. All right. He had tools that he used, from the boomerang to whatever he had. What tools can we as businesses bring to the table as our Alfred to help clients succeed?
Okay, you've asked a question that is near and dear to my heart, and the answer is not easy.
Okay.
But there's an answer.
All right,
You
go
ready?
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things. Remember we talked about at the very beginning, like, who are you? Where did story miners come from?
Right.
We found out that we needed to have a reason for being. It's not a mission statement, because mission statements are often done with too much beer and not enough time, and they're not really serious or real.
Sure. Okay. All right.
We're going to be the best, well, what does that mean? Okay. Yeah. So you got to have a reason for being. It's a statement that declares whom you serve,
right,
the value that you deliver, and what your clients are going to do to create their own value.
Okay.
If you have those three things, you're golden. So let me give you an example of what that might look like here.
All right.
This is one that we did for a company called Alternative Apparel. They make t-shirts. They were full of passion. They had all kinds of cool stuff they could do with t-shirts and the knit and the weave and the fabric and all this kind of stuff. But read that reason for being. They're in the business of encouraging people to wear t-shirts wherever they want to. So that what they did is they took a plain old t-shirt and they turned it into a form of self-expression. That was their reason for being. Okay. So they're there to promote the quest of people. So their ads had people wearing t-shirts at weddings, funerals, graduations, picnics, everything. So wearing a t-shirt anywhere was cool. And you could be you as long as you were wearing that alternative shirt.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
And they built an entire company on it. And a few years ago, they sold to Hanes for $60 million.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they did pretty well.
Yeah.
The next thing that you need are some principles. I don't have a slide for that.
Okay.
The principles are the things that make you who you are. So one of Story Miner's principles, this is one that you probably have and that I bet everybody else has too, if not tucked away in the back of their head. One of ours is that we will not work with a company who by design does harm to others.
Yeah.
No hard liquor, no porn, no cigarettes, no vaping. These are companies that know what they're doing.
Sure.
And we don't work with them. So that's one example. But when you have that kind of language, it gets everybody in the organization to know how to do the next right thing. They just naturally kind of move in. So one other thing that we do is as we organize ourselves, we make sure that we're there to create heroes out of our customers. We make sure that we're focused on client outcomes. Our job at Story Miners and your job at your company and everybody else's. And I was going to say the name of your company, but I know you have more than one, so I didn't want to say.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
All right. And everybody that's got a business is there to help their clients become more valuable or create more value. If you're not doing that, you're probably not in business. So here's what Disney did a while ago. He created a picture in 1957 of how his enterprise was going to work. And it shows how all the different parts of the business connect with each other. Like when they come out with a feature film, it feeds the magazines, it feeds the theme parks, and there's licensing that kind of works throughout this whole thing. But every one of those arrows is a commitment from one part of the business to another that allows them to make bigger promises for their clients. So we started off, Mark, on this idea of how do you tell a story? If you don't have your own house in order, it's really hard because you end up making stuff up. And if you can't keep your promise, you lose your brand.
Okay, you're making me very uncomfortable right now, Mike. All right.
Is that okay, or is that a bad thing?
No, that's a good thing. I mean, that one image that you just showed has really got me thinking quite a bit about duplicating something similar to that in my own business, because you're right. I mean, everything has a cause and effect.
Yeah.
If we're going to do something like, creating this podcast is a good example. What are we giving away? What are we providing? What service are we giving? We're not giving it away to make money. We're giving it away to have people like you here that not only provoke us, but provoke our audience as well. And I think you're onto something here.
Yeah.
So from the things that you've talked about now, how do you help a customer build that roadmap to get to that graphic that you showed us from Disney? I mean, is that part of what you do, or is that?
Absolutely. When people say, story, they think, oh, you write a few words on a piece of paper and you're done. We're crafting brands and cultures and business designs. All this stuff is very deep. But the reason I think that so many people are challenged with running their own corporations, their own businesses, or dealing with others is they haven't gone through that internal work of getting all the parts kind of aligned. You have to be about something. You have to have some guidelines for everybody to operate in that are comfortable and well understood. You need to make clear who owes what to whom. That's that little chart that we saw from Disney. You also put it into an experience. What ties it together for us, and this is what I learned when I was working at IBM, we even started a practice around customer experience design, is turning your reason for being into an experience for your clients. Remember, we talked about that at the very beginning of the podcast.
Sure.
And this is a quick storyboard frame from McDonald's digital drive-through that I worked on in 1999 and 2000. And it was so funny for me when they rolled out their digital drive-through at the end of 2018. Only 19 years later. Now, granted, they've done this, in markets all over the world, and the United States is not their lead market when it comes to rolling out tech. But the idea here was that we knew back then at IBM that the cell phone was coming. Back then, there were these big things that you'd like put on your ear, box phones. But imagine these two girls here are like driving along. Of course, one's not texting, they're not the driver's texting. And we can have a conversation about what's going on in this picture. And then everybody that's hearing it is on the same page. Okay. So you turn your customer experience, you turn what you're trying to do for your clients, the value that you're creating, from their perspective, you craft this experience, and you need a sketch artist. And there are some tools online that you can use to build storyboards, even if you don't draw. But once you understand how the customer is going to consume your story, how are they going to become the hero? How are they going to work with you? How are they going to get value from you? How are you going to support them? Lay that out in a storyboard, just like you were doing a comic book or a commercial. And then that's what gives you the language to get everybody on the same page. And that phrase, same page, if I didn't name my company Story Miners, I would have called it Same Page. Because when you get everybody on the same page, you are golden. Everything is easier to operate. You become adaptive.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And
so
then
go ahead.
I was going to say the last part of the whole thing is to wrap it into a story. So when you're creating a hero, this is a project that we did for a company called Connor Partners. They're one of the preeminent change management companies based here in Atlanta with clients like AT&T and IBM and all of that. They were looking at a buy or build solution for a practice management system, maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe even longer than that. So we created a fictional character called Lindsay, and we built a story around her as if she was going to have access to this really cool new software in the future. It would be kind of like having Sugar CRM or Salesforce with a whole bunch of gadgets on it and stuff like that. So we created the story, and to show how the company was supporting her with this really cool tech, and to show how agile this new technology would be, we broke her leg. Poor thing. Now, she's a fictional character, so it didn't
Okay,
hurt.
good.
No animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
All right, good. Thank you.
Yeah, but we told the story from her perspective. So she finally gets on her dream job with this wonderful company, but she
Right.
has to call in. But no worries, they have remote access. They have their meetings. Now, this was done, remember, 10 to 15 years ago. So this was like what we're doing today, but way in advance. And the story was her first day, her first week, her first client, her first challenge, her first new boss. She got a promotion, she got another promotion, and then out. So through the eyes of a consultant, we showed how the software product would work, and the board was able to make a decision about whether to build or buy.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's a story for future story. And stories are the cheapest, fastest, easiest kind of prototyping there is, because well, they take some time and effort, and you've got to pay somebody like me to help you on it. You can do it yourself too, but it doesn't cost the same as building software or running training programs or building a new store or a new hospital. It's just pennies on the dollar to figure out where everybody's going and to get them on the same page.
Okay, so I'm going to make a leap here. All right. Based on what you've been telling me and your name, Story Miners, you're really like a professional miner. You're going into a company, let's say, and you're mining for the ore, the core of that company to tell that story. And you're guiding and basically determining where to dig, where the ore or the gold, so to speak, really resides.
Yeah.
And help them to find out whether it's 10 karat or 24 karat gold and build a story from there. Am I correct?
That's pretty close. And the thing that, to put it in a gold mining metaphor, what we're looking for is the gold vein. And the gold vein is what travels throughout the mountain, and follows those like old volcano,
Sure.
eruption areas. But once you hit the vein, you know what the company naturally does very well. And then you shape that so that it meets the needs of the customers. The idea is to be the best at what your customers want most. If you're in that space, you really don't need to market.
Wow. Very interesting. That's a different point of view I never thought of before. And something that I think is really a strategy to look forward to for the next, coming out of COVID. Mm-hmm. In 2021, I think this is going to be potentially that next new strategy. I think that's just my opinion, because I've never heard something like this before. Surely you don't have a book or anything like that yet, do you?
I'm working on it. I've had a couple
of
books, but we're working on one. I think we're gonna do two. Future story will be, how do you prototype your future with a story backbone? Because stories are something everybody gets. And it's something everybody has skills for already, because that's how we've been wired for 100,000 years. The more personal development one will be called story mining, which is the name of one of our two. Those are both the names of our signature offers.
Okay.
So your story for business, how to prototype your way to the next right place to be. Story mining, how to figure out your own path and how to get there.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully there'll be a movie version as well.
Yeah. So we're recording, right?
Exactly. Okay, folks, this is the preview of the movie to come. All right. Mike, I really appreciate that insight. I mean, it got my brain and my gears really thinking about not only myself, but my own company, and some of those elements that we need to start really kind of focusing in on. But before I let you go ahead. You got something else?
An example of how companies have made the customer the hero?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. I've got a couple of ads here. This first one is from General Electric.
Okay.
The next one's going to be from Amazon. And if we have time for another one, it's from Rit-Aid.
We got it. Go for it.
And let's see if the people who are watching can figure out what these three very different stories have in common. Here's the first from GE.
I remember this one.
I found software that intrigues me. It appears it's an agent of good. GE has wired their medical hardware with innovative software to be in many places at the same time. Using data to connect patients to software, to nurses, to the right people and machines. Helping hospitals treat people even better while dramatically reducing waiting time. Now a waiting room is just a room.
Okay, so that's the first one.
Okay.
All right, and any thoughts on that?
No, I remember that commercial very well, and I thought it was very insightful about how data is being utilized now.
Yeah, and it came out about the time of The Matrix, and of course, the actor is playing Mr. Smith, and he was replicated in the movie, so we saw a lot of him here. But that's a clue for what makes that commercial so powerful. Here's another one. This one's from Rit-Aid, came out in 2020.
Traditional pharmacies are, well, traditional, and holistic shops can feel a little overwhelming. It's time for a perfect fusion of the two, one that creates a true whole health pharmacy experience, where pharmacists are educated in traditional and alternative remedies, from using exercise to help lower blood pressure, to the right remedies to help you sleep, or how to use essential oils to manage stress. This is the new Rit-Aid, ready to help you not just get healthy, but get thriving.
All right, so the question is, what do all three of them have in common?
Good question. I don't know. You'll have to tell our audience. I don't want to.
Let me get my picture back here.
Okay.
There we go. All right. So the GE one, Mr. Smith was a patient, a doctor, a surgeon, an orderly, a narrator, and an observer. So you got to see that hospital experience from no less than 5 different points of view. As when it's told to you as a story, and of course there's that Matrix theme going on too, so you bring all that back to mind. You're wondering, oh, what does it feel like? How does it work? How do they interact? Oh, that's how they interact, because he changes personas. So you could see that from several different positions, and they used camera angles that were like patient looking up, surgeon looking down, you know, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So that was the one. That was one. The
story you tell, you have to make the customer the hero.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Okay.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Now the last one has got me intrigued. What's your perspective on that?
So the last one was Rit-Aid, and their concept is that they're bringing traditional and like wellness together.
Sure.
Traditional medicine is all about repairing what's broken.
Sure.
Holistic, wellness-oriented, you know, herbs and spices and incantations and yoga and anything else that's not medicine.
Right.
Doesn't have anywhere to live together. So they showed a couple of different pictures, and then they showed people the blend so they could feel for themselves what it was. They could understand it. They could see that it was possible. They could say, you know, whichever side of the fence I'm on, there's probably something from that other side of the fence that I might like, and these guys can bring it to me. And they did a good job with the blue and the green, but they took the personas of their customers and they let them feel their way through it. They gave their customers product experiences, service experiences, and that's what the story was based on. So going back to how Story Miners works and all that stuff, that's why these little pictures are so important, because once we get the experience nailed down, and once we know how the organization's wired together all around a single reason for being, then we have a chance to put that story down as a prototype, and we can build the business from there. And that's how story mining works.
Awesome. Fantastic.
There you go.
Well, I've got a few more questions, and they're more opinion based, but I'd like to get your thoughts on a few things.
Sure.
So what has been your favorite commercial of all time to date?
You know, it was probably the Apple 1984 commercial.
Okay. Oh yeah, no, it seems to be one of the general trends from all those questions that I asked. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I think that one was so popular because it broke some norms and it called the shot. I remember a painting by Babe Ruth. It was called Taking the Shot or something like that. It was an oil painting, but it showed a picture of the Babe going like this. He was a baseball player, I think he played for the Yankees. Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So real famous guy, a womanizer, drank a lot of booze, lived a very tough, rough, in the media
Sure.
kind of life. But what he would do is he would walk out at the end of a game, the bottom of the ninth inning, bases loaded, 2 outs, and he'd tap his bat on the plate and he'd stare at the pitcher, the pitcher, and he
Right.
would go like this and then tell the pitcher with his hand signal where the ball's going to go.
Wow.
The pitcher's out because he had done it so many times before, and now he's going to do it to them. So Apple did that same thing by having those people, with the girl with the hand whoosh around and break the screen of, George
Absolutely.
Orwell's 1984, kind of.
Sure.
There's so many of them, and they're all playing right now on televisions across the country and in Georgia. They're the political ads.
No.
Terrible. Oh my God. There are only 2 or 3 good ones out of the hundreds of messy ones. Why is it that we allow people to lie repeatedly in public? Both sides make claims about the other that are just not true.
Sure.
It's like bullies in kickball in elementary school.
No, I understand. I mean,
it's
it's definitely that. So what is in your mind, and it could be yours or somebody else's, the best campaign you spent the least amount of money on and time, but got the most amazing results?
For us, it was getting in early on Twitter and social media in general, because our largest account ever came from a single tweet.
Really?
A lady saw it. She was a marketing director. She called us in. We did a small assignment that turned into a brand redesign and a store of the future. It was
my gosh.
favorite project. And I really interviewed her. I checked it out and we documented. It was a tweet that led to a website, that led to an article. Then she checked us out, saw LinkedIn, gave us a call, and off we were.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So thoughtful content, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
From a result like that. Interesting.
And there's one other thing that I really, really like. I've been a fan of Chick-fil-A for a long time. The way they run their business is, spiritually different, operationally different. From an innovation perspective, it's really different.
Sure.
And one of the things their brand latched onto about 10 years ago was story. And they have their own site where they tell stories about Chick-fil-A and daddy-daughter date night and all those things. And what's happening, and why I love their emphasis on that, is they use story to help influence the people on the inside as much as they use story to help people understand who they are and to try their new products and services and things like that on the outside.
So with the storytelling concept that you have, is there any kind of emerging technologies that maybe you're investigating to improve that story or anything like that you see?
Yeah, the most important thing is the human part. So it has nothing to do with tech, but always raising the bar on finding the right sequence of things to say and share, trying to make that other person become more the hero. And what technology you use really depends on the needs of the client, because different technologies have different amounts of reach. The place where I see StoryMiner's future long after I'm working full-time in it is around VR, AR, and things like that. Because when people start to work together and I lift up something and it moves on your desk, and when we're 2 holographs having a conversation, kind of like Barack Obama and whoever the interviewer was recently. When that stuff is more mainstream, story is going to become even more important there, because we're going to be able to shape the in-person conversations that people have that determine their future experiences and stories. So instead of working with little stick figures, instead of working with, diagrams and wireframes and stuff like that, we'll be able to work with real people to shape tomorrow's stories. I'm very excited about that part.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there, books you're reading, podcasts you're listening to, YouTube channels, people that you're following, that give you the inspiration and insight as you continue to grow as not only individually, but as a company?
Oh my God, like hundreds.
Okay.
I said, you ready for all 100 of them? Here we go.
No. Maybe pick two, maybe one.
Let's see. Well, I have one here. It come from a colleague of mine, Sean Weaver, who's based in Ireland, and he just wrote this book, Coaching as a Side Hustle.
Oh, wow.
And I've looked at most of that book, and it's really, really well written. It's short. It's organized in a way that anybody, an experienced coach like myself, somebody who's looking at getting into the business, or somebody who's particularly young, can get in and work with it. But he just does a phenomenal job. And that's him on the bottom of the screen wearing a vest.
Okay, cool.
All right,
wow.
So that's one. And the book that's probably had the biggest influence on my life was probably The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And my mom introduced me to that. It's the only piece of literature she ever shared with me. And professionally, Steve Heckel wrote a book called Adaptive Enterprise, which taught me about systems thinking and how to organize the back end of a business. So that Disney thing, that's where my knowledge on how to do that stuff really came from. I owe Steve a big debt of gratitude for that.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. So as we start to wrap up here, what are one or two, nuggets or thoughts that, you could give to our audience that they could take away from this, talk today?
Well, if you're looking for a place to get started, like, what should I do? We covered so much stuff. Your question
right? Yeah,
so good. I mean, you let us paint a really big picture, but now it seems a little bit big. So, where do we go? What do we do? Bringing it in. I think there are two things that everybody could do to shake themselves up, to get tighter with what their customers' needs are, and to think a little bit differently. You've said new perspective a few times today, Mark, and I think everybody could benefit from what you're able to do, which is to take in a new point of view without exploding. It's really cool. So one thing is to shop your, I'll give you a minute to laugh at that.
No, that's good. Thank you.
One thing you can do is shop your own business in every channel that you're in. Go look at your website, call in, fax in, email in, go to the store, come up with some kind of an agenda that you need and see.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. That's awesome.
Do you know why we have customer service departments, by the way?
No, why?
Because when you go into a business and they can't help you out because they're not designed to do that, they send you to a place where problem customers go. And they rely on the wits of the person working there to figure out a workaround, because they didn't do the databases, they didn't do the tie-ins, they didn't do the processes, the operations, and they don't care enough. That's why they have customer service. So,
so the bigger the customer service department, the less they figured out then, right?
Exactly. It's less designed and it's more like, craziness.
Very good point. And you bring up something where technology excuse me, is helping with that, in the sense that what fascinated me in some of the brief times I've been working with Facebook was their messenger bot. And their story that they shared with us about Air France. Air France instituted a messenger bot on their website. And I didn't realize this, 65% of the call-ins were for, I can't remember my password. So instead of taking a human being to do that, now a chat bot solves most of those problems. And as a result, their customer service has shrunk in size
and gone up in quality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, you bring something to the light here that, it's a great point of view I never thought of.
Yeah.
So we've shared a lot today, Mike, and I have to say, this is one of the better ones that we've done. And you've given a lot of stuff and a lot of interesting point of views. Is there anything else in the final few minutes here that you'd like to add or make a comment about?
You made me think about two stories, because really good design is about not just getting more for yourself, but it's about everybody getting more of what they want. And that Air France example is a perfect example of that. Customers get off the phone faster, they get their work done, it costs less, and everybody's happier. Two other examples from very recent times. I think it was an airline in Finland that trained dogs to recognize the smell of medications. And when somebody would leave a bag behind, they'd get the dog to sniff it, and the dog had a radio. They would race down the corridor to the exit, and they'd find the person who smelled like that medication, and they were able to reunite the medicine and the person before.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't
That's
that cool?
pretty awesome.
And I saw a Facebook post yesterday about an old age home in Canada. And I have not verified this. And I checked with my wife who works in healthcare, and she's heard similar stories before. So this is not a new thing. But what they do is they match adults living out their final years with orphan children.
Oh my goodness.
And imagine how much love there is. And imagine how much just goodness there is. And the adults have a chance to share their final life stories with people and feel like they're passing on. They waken up, their oxygen levels are higher, their heart beats better, they're healthier, they wake up earlier. The kids have a chance to get held and to feel love, and they have somebody to look up to. And it's just, those are examples of how good design helps everybody's boat rise in the tide.
Wow, I got goosebumps thinking about that.
Yeah.
Well,
And to
Mike,
wrap up, I'd say that, we all are playing, we're all kind of playing basketball all day long. We're basket. And some people can get really good at dribbling, and others can get good at really passing. But you know what you've got to do in 2021 is you've got to take some shots. Don't not take a shot. Don't wait for it to be too safe. Don't wait for it to feel right. The practice of trying something without knowing if you're going to succeed or fail is a personal human skill that everybody needs to improve. It's like, reducing that thick armor and just kind of being a little bit bare. And if you can get comfortable with trying things that might not work out, and you get more comfortable with learning how to recover from those, because that's the skill that a lot of people don't have. When you can recover from a mistake, like in judo, the first thing you learn is how to fall. Because you're going to fall a lot as you're competing with folks who are way better than you. When I learned how to play tennis, the guy across the street said, Mike, if you want to get better, you got to play with people who are better than you. You got to be willing to lose a little bit. Not everything is a make or break business decision. One of the things I love about Story, Mark, is that it's the fastest, cheapest, most effective, most agile prototyping tool that we have. If you can think it in a story and do it from your customer's perspective and then put it out there, that's how you can do it cheap and fast and find the really good stuff. Be best at what your customers want most.
Okay, well, that's a great place to end on, because with that comment, there's probably going to be some people that want to talk to you. So if they wanted to talk to you, how could they reach out and give you a call or website or email or whatever?
Sure. And I don't have a button for that. Oh my gosh. I'm going to make one though. I learned something today.
Understand. Okay.
You can get to everything, contact information on the works at storyminers.com, STORYMINERS.com. And we have a story on the first page for you that you have to complete. On the bottom right, there's a little picture of me. Looks like I'm talking. Click on that. You'll hear a message from me, and then you get to respond in video. So I'll get to hear from you. So it's a two-way interaction, no forms to fill out. Just tell me what's on your mind. Yeah, you have to fill out, so I can get back in touch with you. But just say what's on your mind, and let me know what you think of that.
Wow.
Mark,
Mike,
thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been amazing. I have to say, one of the most interesting interviews we've done, and real excited about this. And again, I want to thank you for your time. And we'll hopefully have you back on and maybe talk about something a little bit more specific down the road.
Absolutely. Best wishes to you and your family for the new year, health, happiness, prosperity, and all that good stuff.
Same here. Thanks a lot, Mike. We'll be in touch.